All right, shall we?
Let's go.
Icebreakers Podcast, Season 2, final episode. That was loud. Well, everybody, welcome to the final episode of Icebreakers Season 2. I am Matt Evers, and I am joined by my, as always, stunning co-host, Frankie Seaman, who is literally dripping in diamantes this evening. Look at those earrings, girl.
Thank you. Well, I didn't have to skate tonight, and I'm feeling a little bit under the weather, so I thought, well, I'll just compensate by being extra sparkly. And actually, the whole show tonight was super sparkly, so I feel like I fitted right in.
You totally fit right in. I'm sort of wearing some purple-ish. It's a little bit aubergine. I thought about going like proper like suit and tie and all that stuff, and I just thought, you know what? I'm sat at home and I don't feel like putting on a tie. So, but
well, you look very dapper in your aubergine. I feel like I should text you with the aubergine emoji now.
Please do.
I don't want you to get the wrong impression, though.
David may not like that.
No.
How was your week anyway?
My week was amazing. Of course, I'm still milking my birthday. That's why I sound so poorly. I went to see Starlight Express. Absolutely fantastic. So I've had a fantastic week, but I've probably consumed too much tequila, and now I've broken myself. I'm broken.
Well, you look amazing.
I looked more amazing before the show started, but as we know, it was a cry fest, and I just cried throughout the entire show. I had lashes on, taken those off, could cry them off, and I thought, well, I'm not putting them back on because my eyes are going to be all red and sore from crying. I don't know why, but this was very, very, very emotional for me.
So you guys at home, or wherever you're listening, Frankie and I, as well as Alex, have a text chat, obviously, for the content for the podcast. And each week it's always like, Frankie is her normal self, and she's like, oh, I didn't like that, or oh my God, I love that. And I have to say, this week, the first thing she texted in the group was, I'm crying, I'm bawling my eyes out. And I was like, wow, Frankie, you must be feeling very under the weather if there's this emotion coming out of you.
I know, right? So I literally sent a picture of tears rolling down my face because I knew you guys wouldn't believe me if I said I was crying. You'd think I was being sarcastic. I had to send actual proof to my friends that I was crying because it just never happens. I'm not really sure what got hold of me, but it was just, I felt like actually, in all truthfulness, I felt like it was a final show. Did you feel that?
Yeah, I mean, we're definitely going to get into this because there was little hints that I picked up throughout the broadcast this evening that I was like, ooh, they've never done that before, or they've never said that before, or they were hinting at things. I mean, just to start it off, the opening monologue with Steven and Holly, when they do that stand-up, when they introduce the show, she said herself that she was getting emotional just thinking about it, about the show, right? And she's never broken face like that before. Holly is normally very stoic. She's very sticks to the script and has always let her co-host kind of go off script with things like that. And I think it was very telling, for me at least, to hear her say that. So what that means, I don't know, and if you listen to the whole of this podcast, you'll get into my predictions for what the future is. But yeah, it was very telling that the overall vibe of tonight's show was celebratory, but at the same token too, it was a little bit like, geez, is this it?
Yeah, I mean, I felt very emotional, and I think first and foremost, I think it actually was a really great show tonight. I really enjoyed it from start to finish. It was a roller coaster, and you're right, it was celebratory, but it was also very emotional. I just think we've heard rumors have been swirling for the past week or so that this is it, that Dancing on Ice isn't coming back, that this is the final show. Then we had, of course, Jane and Chris announcing that tonight would be their final skate on television. It just feels like it might be a natural time for Dancing on Ice to take a break. Will it come back? What will it look like? Will Jane and Chris still be involved? Because even if they don't want to skate anymore, they still, of course, can judge. They still, of course, can coach or mentor. So it doesn't necessarily mean it's the end, but obviously with Jane and Chris doing their last dance tour as well, it does feel very much like they're kind of winding everything up and closing the package.
Absolutely. And I think regardless of if this was the last ever Dancing on Ice, it was a very historical moment for the UK and for television, because we did see Torvill and Dean's last ever skating performance on TV, which we'll get into in just a little bit as well. So I think overall, I agree with you. It was a great show. That hour and a half seemed to have flown past. I missed some things that, we'd previously seen in other series before, which we'll get into too. So stick around, because even though this is the last episode, we still have a lot to unpack for sure. All right, so off the top, that opening number, I have to applaud cameras, I have to applaud art direction, and I have to applaud the producers, because we finally saw the professionals' faces. Everybody was lit.
Yeah, and we actually saw some of the tricks as well, because sometimes we miss those tricks. There was a couple that we missed, but it's the final. And you know what? I felt like the studio, I mean, it was so beautifully lit. It felt like a golden temple, like it was just sparkle everywhere. The professionals in their black sparkles, the way that they introduced, I mean, Michaela at the top of the show, just diva. She just came out and owned that space. It was absolutely beautiful. And obviously the two boys on either side, we had Anton and Sam. I just thought the whole thing, it was breathtaking, actually. I thought it was one of the best openers that I've seen for quite some time.
I thought that their skating elements within that opening number could have been expanded a little bit more. They basically started on the stage, stepped off, did a tiny little trick, and then stopped, and then that was it. And I was hoping to have seen a little bit more skating from them in that opening number, rather than just the professionals.
So yeah, I think the staging of it was beautiful. I thought the costumes were spectacular in the opening number. Holly was a vision in silver. Oti looks incredible in that red dress. My goodness.
That red dress. That red dress. What was that?
I don't know, but I want that red dress. And Jane looked, of course, absolutely stunning, like a queen. I just thought the girls really showed out this week, and I just thought the whole thing was very well thought out and very well put together at the top of the show. Things took a little bit of a downturn maybe after that, went a little bit more muted, but I certainly think that opening number wowed us all.
Yeah, for sure. I think Jane probably looked the best I've seen her in a really, really long time. She was styled so perfectly. That dress was absolutely stunning, and it made me proud to know them, because I don't know, I just felt like in that moment when they took their bow, maybe it was because we knew that their last performance was coming. But in that moment, it made me go, oh my gosh, it's Torvill and Dean. Where normally you don't really kind of think that, right? You see them and you're like, oh, there they are. Okay, they're going through the judges and everything. And I don't know if it was just the camera angle, or the fact that they maybe stayed on them for a couple more seconds, or maybe it was the audience applause in the studio. But it just felt really special.
A very fitting finale to their last ever performance, although we say last ever performance, and I, for one, I'm heartbroken. I certainly hope it isn't their last ever performance. I understand that as they age, they don't feel they can obviously perform in the way that they used to, and perhaps, who knows what's going on with their bodies, and athletes have injuries. We all carrying injuries from our history of skating. But I do hope that we see them on the ice again, because I don't think people expect them to be as incredible as they were tonight every single time. I think people are just happy to see them on the ice. So I certainly hope that they, in a few years' time, with the fullness of time, maybe they rethink that. We'll see.
Yeah. Well, keep in mind, too, they are going on the road. They're taking themselves and some of the pros and some amateurs on the tour. So it's not their last ever performance, but for television, possibly, yeah.
Now, should we talk about a few things this series that haven't appeared, which we normally would see, like the flying, the favourite skate, props? I feel like we've missed a lot of elements this year that we normally get to see. I don't think it's been particularly detrimental to the series. I haven't missed flying, I never do, because I don't particularly like it. Props I kind of like, but I'm neither here nor there with it. But the favourite skate, I was surprised that we didn't see that, because I feel like that's a really nice way to kind of revisit what the skaters have done, and it's interesting to know what they thought their favourite skate was, or what they thought their best performance was. But we didn't have that tonight either. And what was really interesting was the votes opened before the skaters performed.
Now, they have run that format a couple of times, throughout the reboot, right? So the past 6 series, they have introduced that on the fact of the things that we have missed this series that we've seen in previous series, like the flying and props and the favorite skates. I completely agree with you. Those novelty acts work. They're entertaining, right? And yes, flying isn't based on skating, but it was always a part of Torvill and Deans productions. And that's why they had introduced flying in series 1, was because that was always something that had happened on a Torvill and Dean tour. And it looks amazing. We had some of the best ever performances in flying. And then again, the props, you're giving them something that a professional skater has to deal with in a real professional world. So I completely agree. I think those 2 or 3 elements were really missing this series. Why they didn't happen, I don't know. Just to recap, typically in the finals, they'll do these showcase numbers, which we're going to get into just now. That we saw tonight. And then their second performance would be their favorite skate or their reskate. And they would choose, well, typically production chooses for you. But
right. Here's your favorite skate. You like this one, don't you? You love this one, don't you? Okay.
Exactly. But then you would do a reskate of a favorite performance throughout the series. And what I loved about those favorite performances or those reskates is you really get to see the difference between where you were at that point in the competition to where you are now in the final. And it typically is night and day, right? And it's so amazing. I don't know if it's just because I'm an athlete, but I really like to see those sort of where you've sort of come from outside of those VTs, because you get to see all that in the VTs. But I really missed that tonight. I thought they were doing 2 skates until Alex had told me they're only doing 1 skate. I was like, wait, what? Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so obviously they have been messing around with the format this year, and some of it has worked and some of it was missed, but I think overall it's been a brilliant series.
Yeah.
I think we should probably get straight into Antoinette, really.
Let's do it. Go for it.
It was a banging opening. The VT of Antoinette, he's skating to Prince. I love Prince. I'm probably Prince's biggest fan, so he's already a winner for me. The black and the red and the way that he attacked everything. But before all of that, let's rewind back to his VT. I was crying snot bubbles. His mom, his kids, his story just broke me. I had tears rolling down my face. And I think that VT was so well put together, and it really epitomized how Anton has come across. And I think what he hinted at as well during the entire show was that as a footballer and as a pro athlete, once you retire, it can be really hard to find your purpose in life. And it can really be hard to turn your passions into purpose or turn your purpose into passion. And it's that fine line of what do I do next? And obviously he's a father, and obviously he's a son, and he's a brother. And, he has all these different roles. But sometimes you just want your own space like you had as a footballer. He's very successful, played for West Ham. So we know that he's excelled in his career. But then when you take that away from somebody, and it wasn't taken away from him, but when you retire and that kind of goes, it can be really hard to define yourself. Who am I now? Am I the dad? Am I the brother? Am I the uncle? Because all of these things are very important and they keep us well-rounded and balanced and mentally in check. But you also need to have something where you can push your drive that you've had, your ambition that you've always had, that where you've strive for perfection or strive to be the best part of yourself. You don't always get that once you're an athlete. And when we retire for a really long time. I mean, Anton's still really young now. So I think it was interesting that he said Dancing on Ice had helped him find himself a little bit, and it helped him to push himself and realize that, there is a life after football.
I thought it was absolutely beautiful. Aesthetically, that was probably one of the best VT scenarios that I have ever seen on any show. I thought it was beautiful. So well conceived, so well executed. The way that they had those photos turn into the videos and then they pushed into the video. I was gobsmacked just with that. But then, like you just said, hitting the nail on the head too, Dancing on Ice helped him find his purpose outside of what he's ever known. And I know for you, for me, for a lot of other people, for people that have messaged me through this podcast or just through my social media, That is a really big thing. When you retire or if something is taken away from you, how do you move on, right? And I think that was so beautifully displayed in that VT for him and his journey on this program that at that point I wanted to hug him, right? And fast forward to what we saw then after his performance with what Chris did. I think it just touched so many people in so many different ways. It was just beautiful, absolutely beautiful.
Yeah, I think the nation has definitely fallen a little bit in love with Anton Ferdinand, and I hope we get to see him in many more projects moving forwards because he's such a calm guy, you know. He almost seems so laid back. When we heard that he was doing the show, I stalked his social media. I thought, oh, let's have a little look, see what he's doing in training. I actually couldn't even tell he was on the show. I was like, is he even doing the show? Because he had no social media presence whatsoever in terms of Dancing on Ice. And I almost felt like, oh, he's going to be, you know, a typical footballer. He's going to be a little bit embarrassed by the whole thing. You know, it's going to take him a while to kind of embrace it. I was wrong, and I'm glad I was wrong. It's just that he's very laid back and he's super calm, and you kind of don't expect that from him. You expect him to be very aggressive because footballers in general tend to have, you know, certainly a presence about them, an assertiveness about them. And I was expecting that from him. And he certainly does have an assertiveness about him and a presence about him. But it's much more understated than I was expecting, and not in a way where you could say, oh, he's a bit boring or he's got no personality. Quite the opposite. He's very humble, he's very endearing, he's very charming, he's very understated. And actually, all of that combined with what comes out of his mouth, with what the way that he speaks, the way that he's embraced the whole process, has been completely heartwarming. Like he's captured the nation for sure.
And I think his relationship with Annette had a lot to do with that. Like he came into this situation, he came into the show with an open heart and an open head. You can tell now that he did want to learn, right? It just wasn't, hey, I'm going to take the paycheck, I'm going to use the PR, and I'm going to run with it. And
Definitely
I think
not.
he opened up his ears and his mind and his heart to Annette and her teaching skills to really embrace that entire journey. And I think for me, yeah, he was the underdog. And as we saw, he had the best transformation out of it, anybody.
He was the
So
epitome of dancing on ice. So that's how it should be for me. I mean, you should not be able to skate. You should not be able to dance when you come into it. You know, and obviously when we do get dancers that come into it, their dance train, you get a different, more polished kind of package. And that's lovely too. But he was kind of the full, like you said, the full package, the full transformation. He went from zero to hero just through sheer hard work and just from listening to what Annette told him and from taking direction really well. But I have to say, I've worked with footballers on Dancing on Ice, and they all actually do that. They're all very, very good. I haven't come across one yet that was kind of arrogant or thought they knew better. They're all just ready to start the day, you know, and get
yeah.
to work.
If we move on to their performance, I don't think we need to dive too deep into it, but I just have to say, and I know they mentioned it, Chris mentioned it in the comments, that slide that he skated down, the ramp, I actually didn't believe that he did it. I thought they used like a stunt double for him. That is so difficult and so nerve-wracking. I know that you've done ramps. I've done ramps myself. Do you remember that one that we had to do on tour that one year? That was so freaking big.
I mean, I hate ramps because they're usually made out of plastic ice. So you've got this like sticky feeling. I mean, I don't mind skating on plastic or glice as we call it. But they do have a sticky feeling on your blades. So they're not my favorite. They're really hard to get back up if you have to go up the other way. Coming down them, obviously, it's super fast. They're kind of fun. I know Anton that's probably one of the things he enjoyed most about the show because was the ramp. I'm telling you now, I'm probably going to have one built in his house because my husband David would have loved doing that. He'd been up and down that ramp like a child, and I'm pretty sure Anton would have been as well. Footballers are daredevils, and I bet he embraced that and was like, "Wee!" It's like an icy slide. So although I hate them, I bet Anton didn't hate it. But yeah, it was like super freaky scary.
Yeah, they're very difficult. Now, I have to say, the creative on this routine, first off, I love Prince like you. My grandfather actually drove Prince back in Minneapolis. He was his driver. So Prince is very close to my family's heart.
No way.
Did you not know that?
No, you've been keeping
Oh
that
yeah.
secret.
Yeah, my grandfather was one of Prince's drivers.
Name
But
drop.
name drop. Thank you very much. However, the routine itself was just really busy. I had trouble picking out who was who. And what I mean by that is picking out the celebrity, which is not a bad thing because that means that he blended in quite well, like with the skating. But I wanted to watch him and Annette, and I couldn't figure out which couple was Anton and Annette because it was so many dancers in shoes, and then so many of the pros and the lights and the way that ice camera, which I love, but it was used way too much for this performance. It was shocking. I had a hard time keeping up with it.
Yeah, they did him dirty, I think. I think it was a great track. Obviously Prince, I loved it, but it was very busy. And also the content, he was like trick after trick after trick after trick, and it didn't do him any favors because by the end, you know that this day is a really long day. Celebs are normally called at like 6 o'clock in the morning. And then, you know, you've got rehearsals after rehearsals, you've got costume fittings, you've got hair, you've got makeup, you have a little bit of a quick bite to eat, and then it's like wait around for a long time, you get cold again, then you're back to the training ring, start again, warm up again. It's a very, very long day. And I felt by the end of that routine, he was exhausted, and he made mistakes tonight that we've never seen him make. And there were so many lifts in that routine. This was actually a case of a celebrity skating and keeping up with the professional skaters. I mean, obviously, he's not as polished, obviously, but you know, the tricks that he was doing were exactly to the same quality as the professionals.
Yeah.
And so I think to push him that hard, yeah, sure, if it all comes off on the night, that's great. But I don't think they really took into account the fact that, you know, it's a very long day. And if it does go wrong, it starts to go really wrong. And that's what we saw. He had I mean, they gave him 40, a full house of tens, which I thought was lovely. But there were a couple of mistakes. He missed a lift, and then he let go of her on the pull through and had to catch up with her. And by then I could see he was scrambling because when he came out at the beginning, he was owning that piece. I mean, his little face was lit up and it was brilliant. But by the end of it, you could tell that he was scrambling, and he knew that he'd messed up. And my
Yeah.
heart broke a little bit for him. And I was like, you guys put too much in it.
I don't know if it did him any favors or not, you know, because if you look at the statistically speaking, Anton was in the skate off more than everybody else. So with the final being 100% public vote, was he going to get to the top two, right? But regardless, I absolutely loved it. I loved him and Annette's journey on Dancing on Ice. I thought it just was, yeah, just makes you smile, makes you feel good.
So Dino came over and hugged him at the end, which I thought was, like you said, a really touching moment. But you know, I don't know if people at home understand how much that means, because Jane and Chris are obviously iconic and legendary. But everybody has so much respect for them in the skating world, and celebrities that come into our world tend to always really be overawed by them and just can't believe how incredible and how great they are. So for Dino to stand up and hug Anton, and let me tell you now, we all wanted to hug Anton, so I was with you there, Dino. It meant a great deal. I remember once, I think it was when I was with Chris Fountain, and Chris had a little wobble, and I just managed to just get him through. You know, sometimes you just have to get your partner through. And I remember at the kiss and cry area when Jane and Chris used to be in the kiss and cry area with us, and I remember Dino whispering to me, so it wasn't heard on camera, he's like, "You're a great partner." And it meant the absolute world. You know, that those kind of compliments from Christopher Dean, like him hugging you or him saying something to you like that, means it just makes your year, it makes your life. I'll never ever forget that. And Anton will definitely never forget being hugged by Dino tonight.
I can specifically remember every single time that Chris would come up to me and say, "Well done." If it was with a pro partner or if it was with a celeb. And he's got well, they both do. Both Jane and Chris have something about them that when they pay you a compliment, it literally is worth more than anything on the planet. And the fact that he gave Anton that hug, it was incredible. I don't think Chris has ever hugged a celebrity before. He's given handshakes. He's stood up and, you know, a standing applause, and he's obviously applauded for them. But yeah, that meant something really special.
It was very special. Very special. Yeah. So sadly, they didn't make it through to the Bolero. And nope. I was really sad about that, actually.
I was too. I think, like we just said, he kind of is the epitome of what Dancing on Ice is all about. And I was very interested to see their interpretation of the Bolero. And for him to be able to put that final cap on the top of his journey would have been, even if he didn't win, right? Like, but just to be able to do the bolero. Because what you guys don't understand at home sometimes is that you train this bolero sometimes 2 weeks in advance. So you'll get the music and then you'll start to work on it. And then that last week before the final is when you really refine it. And however, this year it may have been different because they didn't have the favorite skate. They only had the showcases. And typically showcases start 2 weeks before as well because there's so much involved with the dancers and getting Jane and Chris's schedule aligned with the celeb schedules and all of that. So, you work on a routine for 2 weeks, an iconic bolero, and then you don't get to do it. And believe me, I know how that feels because it happened my first year with Bonnie. And what it'd be really interesting to see is if ITV release Anton and Annette's Bolero, because in the dress rehearsal in the afternoon before the show, they record those boleros for that exact reason. So, and that was Paul Courage, the original director of Dancing on Ice, was the one who had suggested to the production company that very first season, let's record these just in case. And he got a message to Bonnie Langford in the dress rehearsal to say, do your dress rehearsal full out, because if you don't make the bolero on the TV show, at least we have a full out bolero in the dress run on tape.
Yay, Paul Courage. I'm going to his 70th in the summer, so I shall tell him that you remember that moment.
Oh
yeah,
my
I know.
God.
I believe he's 17. Yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah. Very cool. All right. Well, moving on, Sam and Molly skated second with their Pink Panther showcase. And if we go back to Sam and Molly's VT, Memory Lane, Sam said something that was really poignant. And this is why I loved this VT scenario, because it really brought out some really interesting things. We really got to see them for who they are, not just this like, hey, there's a camera in your face, talk to us, right? Sam said that this was the first time in his life that he achieved something as Sam and not as his character. And I just went,
Yeah.
right?
It was a really beautiful moment, actually. And he talked about finding his confidence and that he was able to push himself. I think what's interesting with Sam is, and they didn't show it too much in the Memory Lane piece, but he was such a terrible skater when he started. I mean, he wasn't terrible, but he certainly wasn't the Sam that we know today. And then all of a sudden, from watching the training videos and then to the first show, he blossomed into this incredible skater. He's had great skating skills from day one. And there was a time when I was worried that he was going to plateau. Well, he did plateau for a little bit. But like he said, he was able to push himself, find his confidence, and be his own person, not just this character that everybody knows and loves from Coronation Street. Chesney, obviously, even though Gino called it Chesney.
No, for sure. And I think doing a number like Pink Panther, I wasn't quite sure where they were going to go with it. And then they started off with the pros, with the jewels, and then they went over to the door situation with the 3 doors. And then it turned into...
Poor Colin got slapped in the face every time the door opened, and I was just killing myself laughing. I hope he's okay. He's got a flat nose now.
Like, then it turned into comedy. And then when we finally saw Sam, I went, oh no, I don't know how this is going to play out. Because first off, comedy on the ice is extremely difficult. Comedy is all based on timing. And skaters can skate to music, but we don't necessarily, and yes, you can do choreography to a count, but timing has to be very flexible when it comes to ice skating because we're on zero gravity, basically. And then when we saw him in that sort of disguise, to me, it was a little bit too much. Like, he wasn't recognizable enough. And when you're in the final, you need to be you, right? You need to look like you, is what I should say. And I got a little bit worried with the costuming on that.
Well, before I get into all of that, I have to say props to Christopher Dean, because all that Fosse choreography at the beginning was right up my street. I mean, it was Fosse. I just loved it. So a nod to a really famous choreographer, Bob Fosse. And that was very Christopher Dean. That was iconic Christopher Dean choreography, inspired by Bob Fosse, of course, but then translated onto the ice in the only way that Christopher Dean could do it. It was absolutely gorgeous. I agree with you. I thought it was a very strange choice. I actually didn't particularly like the number. I liked it as a whole. I didn't think it showcased Sam. I thought it showcased Molly. My God, she looked spectacular in that pink catsuit, which I am definitely gonna go and cat burgle because it was beautiful. We all want the catsuit, even you, Matt. Don't even deny it. She looks
Oh, I
stunning.
do. Sure.
But I do feel that the entire routine showcased Molly. We saw a lot of lifts where Sam was assisting the pro boys. We didn't see any lifts where he did it by himself, which wasn't the case with Anton and Annette. We saw Anton and Annette just bang, 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 lift after lift after lift. He was doing all of the work. With Sam, I felt that we didn't see that. He was assisted on all of the lifts. And I just felt like it was the Molly show. Now, don't get me wrong, I love watching Molly skate. She's beautiful. She's a stunning, stunning woman. But I did feel that it sort of missed the point of showcasing Sam a little bit.
Yeah, I think when you compare Anton's routine to Sam's routine, Anton was given a very technical routine, where Sam was given a very characterized or characterization routine. And for the final, well, obviously it worked because, I mean, spoiler alert, he won, right? But I think as we've seen from previous showcases throughout these 17 series, the celebrity needs to be the focus. And I think Molly dressed in hot pink, having all the solo work, Sam dressed in this muted trench coat with a hat on and a disguise, not really doing much, didn't work in his favor, or at least didn't work in the routine's favor, because he is such a great skater and he is such a great character skater. He is a great actor. I felt like they could have done like, what if they made him the Pink Panther?
I know. And that's what I thought
Like,
was going to
twist it.
happen.
Do a little twist or something.
But that's what I thought was going to happen. I mean, the Pink Panther was male anyway in the cartoon, so that's what I thought was going to happen. And then when it wasn't, and he was Clouseau or whoever it was, I was like, oh, that's not what I was expecting at all. Yeah, I just didn't feel like it showcased him. I thought it was a good routine. I thought there was, what's that lift called that we used to, that they were inspired?
Dolphin?
You know, the one that we used to do. Well, there were so many of them that we used to do. Yeah, what's that called?
The dolphin.
The dolphin, that's right. Sam was the one being lifted, and it just felt a little bit like, I don't know, it just didn't feel like it showcased his skating, and his skating is very, 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 very good. So I was surprised that we didn't see more of that, and I was surprised that we didn't see more of him being the leading man. It felt like that Molly was the leading lady, and Sam was kind of like the support act.
Again, 10s across the boards, as everybody did tonight. And I think, too, like, I don't know, this is where I kind of feel it was one of those moments of what's happening here. Because the judges were just saying that everybody was amazing and everything was great and everybody got 10s across the board. And it was like, have we just given up now? Or are we just going to turn this into an exhibition? Which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But it kind of lost it kind of lost the feel of the final.
Yeah, I mean, we have the judges in the final. Their scores don't mean anything, and we have them there to critique and to guide the audience who don't know much about skating, or the general fan population don't know as much about skating or performance. So we have the judges there to guide that, and there wasn't a lot of guidance. And because everybody gave everybody a 10, it just meant that it was perfect, which I guess meant it was a level playing field then for the public to come in and vote.
But it left you dumbfounded as well, right?
Oh no, I was like, what? Yeah, completely. And I mean, to be honest, as much as I loved Anton and Annette's performance, it wasn't perfect, it wasn't flawless, so it certainly wasn't tense for me, because they missed 2 lifts. And then, as much as I loved Sam's skating, I didn't think his performance was particularly amazing. So I think I would have dropped, perhaps on the skating side for Anton and Annette, I would have dropped them a point, and perhaps on the performance side for Sam and Molly, I would have dropped them a point.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, then the last showcase we saw was Michaela and Mark. Her VT was all about how Dancing on Ice has sort of regenerized her as a human being and really sort of took it full circle for her since she started on the stage.
Yeah, so she skated to Red on My Parade by Barbra Streisand from the movie Funny Girl. I love this film. I love this piece as a song. I was really excited when they said that what she was going to be skating to. Of course, we went down her memory lane, and that was really lovely as well. You're right. I mean, those pictures coming to life was an incredible way of doing the VTs, and we haven't seen that before. So well done to whoever came up with that creative. But yeah, she said that Dancing on Ice has made her feel 20 years younger. But I thought what I really took away from the memory lane VT that we saw with Mark and Michaela was their relationship. I think he's instilled so much confidence in her. And of course, she had confidence. She has performed before, of course, but it was so many years ago, 40 years ago. I feel like Mark really came across so well. And we know him as a human being, so we know that's how he is anyway. But I thought they really showcased his relationship and how he'd taken care of her and taken time to build those basic skating skills to give her the confidence to be able to shine. And I thought this particular showcase was all about Michaela, and I thought that's really what a showcase should be.
100%. I think, if we look at Michaela's sort of demographic, right? She's in her late 50s. She's had multiple facets to her career. And I really feel from the women that I have skated with previously at that same sort of crossroads where their families are sort of grown, their career is still plugging away, but maybe they're segued into something else. I think the show really can do that for them. And I think Mark's brilliant way with his students, Michaela being his student, really can set them up for sort of a new lease on life, right? A new lease on career. I think what we're going to see out of Michaela in the next couple of years is going to be pretty spectacular because she's going to come out of this show now and look back at it and be like, oh my God, I learned how to ice skate, which then makes anything possible. We look at what happened with Denise Welsh. She came out of Dancing on Ice and she found sobriety and she found a reinvigoration of her career. I think it's a really great encompassing package when women like Michaela come into a series like this because it creates greatness for them.
Well, it's a huge midlife boost. She said it herself. She's 58 years old. And I have to say, my God, the lifts, I've done all of those lifts. I mean, you and I did most of those lifts in Two Tribes, those lifts that they gave to her, which are often 2 or 3 boys manhandling her at the same time. She will have been black and blue, bruised. I mean, literally, I remember doing those lifts and for rehearsals before we did the tour, I think back in 2008 or 9 or whatever it was. I had 17 bruises on my body. Now, I was a fit 30-something-year-old professional ice skater at the time, but still, it's just the time, and it takes so long to perfect those when you've got more than 2 people involved. As soon as you put a third boy in, a third person in, another boy, or a third boy, or a fourth boy, then all of a sudden everybody's got to get it right, and you're the human guinea pig. They're all trying to get it right, and you have to do those tricks over and over and over again because the pro boys are learning about your size, about your weight, about where your center of gravity is, and you're the only one that can do it. It's absolutely killer. Her back, her shoulders, her joints will have been ragged to pieces, and I don't think they really focused on how hard that is. For any woman, but particularly at 58. I'm surprised they didn't break her. When I saw that routine, I was like, wow, she is made of steel.
Yeah, and keeping in mind too, when you're a professional skater training for a tour or a show, you will have weeks and weeks and weeks of rehearsals with those tricks where they had potentially maybe 6 or 7 sessions on that number, and that's it. So, I mean, hats off to Michaela for first off, taking on the challenge of doing all of that and then being able to accomplish what she did because it was mind-boggling.
Absolutely. So, spoiler alert, Mark and Michaela did go through to the Bolero. They did a spectacular, elegant Bolero, but they didn't win.
No, they did not. All right. So, before we get to the Boleros, so I think at this part of the show, it is time for our golden envelopes. Frankie, are you ready?
I'm ready, but you should go first because you're the reigning champ. Obviously, you won it last year. If you go 2 for 2, I'm going to delete your number, literally.
I hope you do. So I have to be honest, full transparency. As we know, halfway through this podcast season, I went from Los Angeles to London, and I forgot to pack my envelope. However, I took a photo of my answer. So, my
Let's
golden
see it then.
envelope.
Let's see it because I'm already suspicious. I'm going to have to employ the Pink Panther and Inspector Clouseau to have a little investigation here. Let's see it.
Drum roll, please.
I actually can't read it. Ah, Michaela. Oh,
And
well,
that is dated January 19th, 2025, and the timestamp on the photo also says January 19th. So,
I mean, I'm here for you. I don't think you would lie to me. Because you know
this
I've got that.
time.
Because you know I've got that rage. Nobody can survive the rage. Well, my person didn't even make the final, so I had Molly in there. I thought it was going
Wait,
to
the
be Molly.
pro?
No.
No, I'm joking.
Oh, yes, she won it. Yay! I win! I win! Oh, I'm just going to write Sam and Molly. Literally cheated so badly.
Oh my God, that is hilarious. Interesting you chose Molly.
Yeah. I thought she was severely underappreciated by the judges for the entirety of the show. I thought she was
Yeah,
severely undermarked. I thought she was very harshly treated, and I'm still pretty mad about it.
interesting.
So basically, you won again, then, basically, didn't you? You basically won again.
How did I win?
Well, because you did better than me. I mean,
Well,
your person
no.
didn't actually win it, but they were in the final. Mine wasn't even in the show, basically.
Well, she was there for 6 weeks or five
Yeah,
weeks.
but then even at the end, she didn't even get her own spots. She had to skate with Dan.
And they didn't talk to her when they were in the audience as well.
Whatever, people. Like, what's going on there?
Yeah, I don't know.
It's
Okay,
because
well, moving.
they think she's a traitor.
Ba-dum bum.
Yeah. Oh,
Slight change in the format of the show. We had the returning celebrities and their professional partners. And then we had Stephen Mulhern skating but not skating.
yeah, no.
Yeah.
It was an interesting choice this year. It wasn't my favorite way of bringing back the returning celebs, and then Stephen just topped that all off, and that whole entire section for me could have gone away.
let's
Bye-bye.
let's see some real skating or expanded upon what we're going to get into with Jane and Chris's Bolero. Like I would have loved to have seen a little bit more historical footage. The VT could have been for me a half-hour show, just the
Yeah.
VT of all their different boleros that they've performed. They've done, like Chris said, over 80 performances with Dancing on Ice, so I think they could have definitely have expanded upon some of that, right?
And let's not forget that not only have they done the Bolero, which of course is iconic and legendary, of course, not going to take anything away from that, but they've had some incredible other, Olympic performances. So Mac and Mabel, Barnum and Bailey, their Paso Doble, they've had so many incredible routines that we could have seen a little bit more of that because this is a huge platform. Millions of people were watching, and I'm sure a few more tuned in this week just to see Jane and Chris's final performance. And I think we could have recapped a little bit about their incredible career, not just solely focused on the Bolero, as incredible as it was, because they didn't end up skating the Bolero anyway. So
Yeah.
it would have been nice to see, like you said, I could have watched hours of their footage and just recapped all of that. I would have loved it.
Me too. Me too. All right, so then they lined up for the Bolero lineup, which the three finalists. What did you like? Did you like the costuming?
No.
You did? See, I loved it because it went back a bit more traditional. Like
Yeah,
over the past five years or so, they've gone a little bit artsy, a little bit streetwear, and I was never a fan of that. And maybe call me old school, but I really enjoyed a more traditional Bolero look.
yeah, but I didn't like the colours. Yeah, the costumes in and of themselves were fine, like the big puffy sleeves and the way that they were styled, but I didn't like the colours. They were too joyful. They weren't dramatic enough. Like Bolero's a real serious, piece. It's very emotive, and of course, at the end, the two lovers throw themselves into the volcano. Like it's not a happy ending, and I felt like Like they have this incredible love story of this passion, and then eventually they throw themselves into the volcano. Brilliant, but then they were wearing like sort of like I don't know, like they were going to a kids' party. I didn't like the colours. They were too bright and poppy for the girls, too lilac-y for the girls, and then the boys were kind of a shade of crimson, which I didn't really get.
Mm,
Me,
interesting.
you know, wear something dark and dramatic like this kind of purple, or have the ombre like we've seen in the past. If you need to have something lighter on there, but let's not take away from the fact that this is not a happy ending, people.
At least not one you paid for.
Right?
All right. So they've closed the voting lines. And then they announced that Sam and Michaela make the Bolero, as we mentioned previously. Anton did not. But I think at this point,
Oh,
Sam's Bolero, personally for me, I thought it was the most historically accurate interpretation of the Bolero that we have seen in like years. It was smooth. The connection was brilliant. He was so stable. And for me, it was flawless.
yeah, you did say that. I actually don't think it was flawless. He had a little wobble after those massive epic knee slides that they did, which were very impressive. He had a little wobble getting up out of that. So for me, it wasn't actually flawless. I did enjoy it. I thought it was very calm. I didn't feel nervous at all, apart from his little wobble. But it's Sam. He always has a little wobble. And when we look back to last year, Ryan, he wobbled his way to the final and won it. So I'm not really that surprised.
Yeah.
But it was very calm. It didn't make me feel nervous. It didn't make me feel like he was nervous. He's been an exceptional skater. He's probably been one of the most natural skaters that we've ever seen or dancing on ice in terms of his ability to just hold an edge and to just find skating in his body. I think he's been very, very natural from not from day one, but from when he kind of turned his corner and suddenly sort of embraced skating.
Yeah.
However, I didn't think it was particularly elegant as far as boleros go. I thought it was quite perfunctory almost. It was almost kind of like we have to get these moves in, so we're doing them. And I felt like he was very practiced and very perfect, but I didn't feel like there was a lot of passion. I didn't feel like there was a lot of elegance to the routine.
Okay. I'd buy that. I can understand that for sure. I think, it's Molly's first Dancing on Ice series. This is obviously the first time that she's performed Bolero. And it can be very intimidating. And I don't know if this was the case, but I'm trying to put myself in her shoes. And I think, they really had this friendship connection that was mentioned quite a bit.
Yeah.
And I wonder with her with Sam being her first celebrity, when you get into a situation like this, it's very intense, right? The whole show, not just Bolero Week, but the whole show. And I think until you find the line in the sand of work and pleasure, like we had said at the beginning of this podcast, we kind of felt like they needed to go out and get drunk together, or they needed to go out and have dinner with each other to kind of break that awkwardness between the two of them. And
The brother sister kind of feel.
yeah, and I think they just never really got over that. And that's probably what you're feeling is that lack of forced passion, right? Because you're acting.
Yeah.
Not real passion, you're acting.
Of course.
Yeah.
But you can act, you can act that way with somebody that you get along with really well. But I'm sure they did get along really, really well. They seemed to get along really, really well. But I feel that there wasn't any, yeah, like you said, there was no passion and there was no drama. And I just wanted to feel like, these two people are so in love and it's so intimate that we shouldn't be watching it. There should be
Yeah.
something that we're not privy to. They should be having this whole experience in this bubble. And we should just be able to watch it from a distance and go, yeah. These are incredible. Two people that are incredibly in love, and then they, throw themselves into a volcano. I'm big on throwing themselves into a volcano. The inferno. Burn.
Jesus, you're dark. No, but I think too we have to keep in mind the professional choreographs, the routine. I don't know if it was the same situation this series, but typically Karen, Dan, the other coaches don't really get involved unless you need help with, spotting a lift or something like that. So that is sometimes where the newer professional Molly, may have just stuck to the rules and copied the original Bolero, right? Oh, well, let's do this trick. Okay, now let's do that trick. Now let's do this. Whereas in comparison to Michaela's Bolero is Mark Henretti, who, 10, 12 years on the series, is a brilliant choreographer and was very inventive with his Bolero choreography.
So Mark and Michaela's choreography for me was incredibly inventive. We saw things in there that we have never seen before. And I thought that I actually thought that she was going to finish it, but I know it's difficult because obviously the voting public are mostly women of Michaela's age. And so they're probably going to vote for the guy. Obviously, the Coronation Street vote will have kicked in. And obviously, Sam's such a likable character as well. So you're getting a lot there in your favour. Whereas women tend to not vote for women. And our demographic on Dance Go Nice is, mostly sort of women of my age who are watching the show. So I guess women don't vote for women. And I guess we saw that tonight because for me, Mark and Michaela's routine was much more elegant. It was there was much more depth to it. There was much more passion. And there was a lot more storytelling, which I didn't see with Sam and Molly. However, I did feel a little bit that Michaela was a bit nervy in the Bolero. And I'm not sure if that read at home. I'm not sure if people at home would have been able to tell. But for me as a professional skater, I was like, oh, she's a little bit nervy. I think it's just because she wanted it so much. It didn't take away from her performance because, she didn't miss anything. She was on point for the entire routine. But I could just tell that she was on the edge. I was kind of holding my breath. I was just like, just get through it.
And I think with somebody in comparison to Sam, who typically is just very solid, very smooth, he's very grounded with his moves, it's very easy as the pro to mimic that. He typically probably never varied an extension, or you just always knew what you were going to get. And with Michaela, from our point of view, the professional's point of view, being a little bit nervous or shaky or whatever, that's very hard to read as her pro, right? As good as Mark is, that would have been very difficult for him to stay in perfect sync with her. And that's one of the notes that I had written was there was a couple of times where they were not in sync, and it was very apparent. And that is part of your job as a professional skater on Dancing on Ice, is to dumb down your skating. No disrespect, but dumb down your skating to make the celebrity look better. And I think when you had a performance like Michaela's tonight, where it just felt like they just were not in tune with each other, as good as it was, I think it was missing. It was missing that you saw the connection or felt the connection. I didn't necessarily feel that from them.
Huh. That's interesting. So I think because, see, you said that on the group chat, you were like, oh, they're a bit out of sync. And I was like, I didn't see that. I think because their lines are so long and their lines are so strong, that every time she went for an extension, an arm or a leg, I felt like it perfectly matched Mark's. Even if they weren't happening at the same time, I felt like their levels of skating or their levels of delivery were very similar.
Okay, yes, I will agree with you on delivery for sure. However, what I mean when I watch a couple skate or a couple dance, every movement, like if one leg goes out, that other person's leg needs to go out at the same time. And I think that is something where, Frankie, you're skating, you're concentrating on your own steps. You're also concentrating on them, but you can always see them out of the corner of your eye. And if they do something early, if they do something late, you have to make those adjustments. And I think if you go back and watch Michaela's Bolero, there are a couple of instances, and I think it was like cross behinds or cross rolls or something, where both legs were coming out, and Michaela's would go out and then Mark's would go out. And it just wasn't, because it was pretty basic skating, to me, it stuck out like a sore thumb. And
so in skating terms, we call that popcorn, when you've got one popping up and then the other popping up. But I wasn't sure that wasn't a choreographical choice. Are you sure that wasn't a choice, that they'd chosen to be a bit more contemporary about it and not do everything matchy-matchy?
Maybe. I don't know.
Anyway, regardless. Yeah. Sam and Molly, well, congratulations, you guys. Yay. Well done.
Yeah. Very, very, I think it was a great final. It's always hard to say because was hoping this year for two reasons. Number one, that a female would win because it has been since 2013 since we've had a female win Dancing on Ice. And also for Mark, because Mark did call his retirement at the beginning of the season. And Mark has been to the final a couple of times, but has never won this show. So I'm sad for Mark, too, because he never got to lift a trophy.
I agree with you. But we are so happy for Sam and Molly. Congratulations, you guys. We loved your Bolero, and it was so great to see you guys lift the trophy. It's been quite the journey for you, Sam, and we've been with you every step of the way. So congratulations and commiserations to Mark and Michaela.
And we need to mention, obviously, Torvill and Deans' performance to Lifted. I'd never heard this track before. I'm almost wondering if it was an original track. Was it?
You mean you never heard that version of it? You'd never heard the song before?
No, I'd never heard any of it before.
Wow, you never heard the song before? My goodness, where were you in the 90s? Well, it's a great track. I thought they did You can't remember, can you? No. Where were you in the 90s? You have no idea. Yeah, it was a great track. I love that song, actually. And I thought it was perfectly choreographed, a perfect fitting end to their TV career. And I'm very, very, very excited to see them on their Last Dance tour.
Absolutely, for sure, which goes out the middle of April, I think, or the end of April, all the way through May. In arenas, we have quite a few friends that are on it. Alexander Schauman, who co-hosted the Lookbook with Frankie here on the season 2, our bonus episode. Her and Lukash are going on it, as well as quite a few others. So make sure that you get your tickets.
We're going to be an iconic tour. So we have loved breaking down this entire series for you guys. We hope that you've enjoyed it as much as we have, because I've literally had a blast. Man, I just love working with you. It's the best. I'm going to see you on Sunday because it's somebody's birthday. Not mine for a change.
It is my birthday next week. I know. We shall have fun. But thank you. First off, I want to thank Alex for filling in for me for that week when I had a scheduling conflict, but also for co-hosting the bonus episode, The Lookbook with you, Frankie. And Frankie, I have to say a massive thank you to you, because once again, it was an absolute blast being able to do this with you, albeit in Los Angeles for half of this. And we personally want to thank each and every single one of you that have watched, that have listened, that have stuck with us now for 2 seasons. We do this because of you. We absolutely love getting all of your feedback and your comments. And what's next? Not quite sure. We don't know if Dancing on Ice is coming back yet. However, this probably is not the end of the Icebreakers podcast. Let me say that.
Well, that's something to look forward, guys. So stay tuned. And also, I have to make sure that I send our winner their signed photo. That was back in the first episode. We chose a winner out of everybody that had applied or answered our questions, I should say. So we will be sending that out to you as well. I think it was Debbie who won that. So I'll be sending that out to you this week. And yeah, I'm very excited for what comes next with the Icebreakers podcast.
Thank you, Frankie. Thank you, everybody at home. We will see you guys very, very soon. And stay safe, everybody.